2026 has begun with India at a crossroads. The India-EU deal was once called the mother of all deals. Now, the India-US deal has a new label, the father of all deals. Not because it is a bigger, but because it is a costlier. I'm Ali Furqan and this is The Pivot. Tonight, we ask a hard question. Is this a trade breakthrough or a strategic retreat under pressure? The story began, as many power plays nowadays, with a tweet. Donald Trump announced what he described as a major breakthrough in trade talks with India. Lower tariffs, greater access for American goods, and growing pressure on India to scale back its purchase of Russian oil. In Washington, it was projected as a win. In New Delhi, the reaction was far more cautious because this was never just about trade, it was about leverage. And that is why what happened next matters. Just weeks earlier, when tariff pressure was linked to Russian oil purchases, India's response was firm. Stopping Russian oil, New Delhi said, was not acceptable. Energy security, inflation control, economic stability, all described as non-negotiable national interests. So, the question now becomes unavoidable. What changed? The answer lies in pressure layered, simultaneous, and relentless. First, the economy. India's stock markets was under stress. The rupee weakened sharply, becoming one of the fastest declining currency in the region. Foreign investors grew cautious. Economic confidence began to slip. And when markets wobble, politics follow. Which brings us to the second pressure, timing. For Narendra Modi, economic stability is political survival. Market turbulence is not an abstract indicator. It is a direct threat to political narrative. And then came the third pressure from Washington. This was no longer just about oil. Tariffs, exports, market access, and trade optics were bundled together. The message was implicit but unmistakable. Economic relief would come with conditions. Now, let us understand what is truly at stake. Russia is not a marginal supplier for India. At its peak, Russian crude accounted for nearly one-third of India's total oil imports. Even after recent reduction, Russia remains among India's most important energy partners. Bilateral trade stands roughly at $80 billion, with a target of $100 billion reiterated during President Putin's recent visit to Delhi. This relationship was not just built overnight. It survived wars, sanctions, and shifting global alignments. And now, it is under visible strain. This is where the opposition's charge of surrender comes in. Not because a final document has been signed, but because a red line appears to be fading. What was once described as non-negotiable is now being quietly repositioned as manageable. And there is another uncomfortable question. Where is the document? No signed agreement before the public, no detailed framework debated in Parliament. Yet celebrations are already underway. In democracies, deals are debated first and celebrated later. Here, the order appears reversed. Narendra Modi built his political image on defiance. Strong leadership, strategic autonomy, no compromise on national interest. That image is now under pressure. Because if tariff pressure and market stress can reshape energy policy, then the question is not just about trade. It is about sovereignty under strain. Supporters call this pragmatism. They argue India must adopt a transactional world, that stabilizing markets and protecting growth comes first. Critics argue the opposite, that India has compromised an old strategic ally, that Russian oil was not merely energy, it was leverage. and that abandoning it weakens India's ability to balance global powers. This is not ideology, it is arithmetic. Markets reacted positively, stocks rebounded. The rupee stabilized for now. But market responded to momentum. History responds to consequences. And history will ask, was this a temporary adjustment or the beginning of a strategic retreat? So where does this leave India? A country firm on Russian oil, now under visible pressure to reconsider. A government celebrating a deal before placing its terms before the public. And a prime minister navigating an uncomfortable shift from defiance to accommodation. This may not yet be a signed surrender, but it is a retreat in motion. Between markets and principles, between pressure and pride, between survival today and autonomy tomorrow. I am Ali Furqan, and this is The Pivot.